There's a strange silence that follows moments of joy. The laughter fades, the music stops, and somewhere beneath the warmth of pleasure, a quiet unease returns. The question, was that it? We spend our lives chasing something we can't quite define. A better job, a better lover, a better version of ourselves. All under the shimmering illusion of one word, happiness. But if happiness is truly the goal of life, why does it vanish the moment we reach for it? Nietzsche saw this paradox long before modern psychology began to name it. To him, happiness was not a prize to be won, but a narcotic. A soothing illusion sold to the spirit to keep it docile, obedient, and asleep. He didn't reject joy itself. He rejected the worship of it, the way people built their entire lives around avoiding pain and chasing comfort. Because to Nietzsche, that was not life, it was a form of slow decay, a kind of spiritual domestication. Imagine a lion born in captivity. It's fed on time, kept safe from danger, and even petted with affection. From the outside, it looks content, peaceful. But look into its eyes, and you see the dullness where fire should be. It has forgotten what it means to hunt, to struggle, to bleed. And that, Nietzsche believed, was what modern man had become, tamed by his own search for happiness. He wrote, "Man does not strive for happiness, only the Englishman does that." A sharp jab at the utilitarian idea that the purpose of life is simply to maximize pleasure and minimize pain. Nietzsche saw in that idea a quiet horror, a future where humanity, in its comfort and contentment, would lose the very essence of what makes it alive, the capacity to struggle toward greatness. Because happiness, when worshipped, becomes a cage. It teaches us to fear pain, to avoid risk, to flee from anything that threatens our fragile sense of peace. And yet, every great transformation, every act of creation, discovery, or love has been born out of friction, not ease. The artist bleeds for beauty. The thinker suffers through isolation. The lover endures heartbreak to taste the depths of devotion. It is through suffering that consciousness expands, and through pain that meaning is born. But we, in our age, are taught to anesthetize every discomfort, to scroll away sadness, to medicate anxiety, to stay positive at all costs. We call it self-care, balance, or peace of mind, but often it's just another form of escape. Nietzsche would have looked at this world and seen not a paradise of progress, but a padded cell, a civilization terrified of its own shadow. Carl Jung once said, "There is no coming to consciousness without pain." That single truth cuts through the heart of Nietzsche's warning. To live fully is not to be perpetually happy, it is to be awake. An awakening is rarely gentle. So, when Nietzsche said happiness is a trap, he was not condemning joy, he was exposing the way we use it to hide. Because happiness, as we commonly seek it, is not freedom. It's comfort dressed as meaning. And comfort, for Nietzsche, was the death of the soul's adventure. In the end, what he offered was not an antidote to unhappiness, but a confrontation with life itself. Raw, chaotic, unfiltered. He urged us to stop asking, "How can I be happy?" and to start asking, "What am I willing to endure for something greater than myself?" That question, he believed, is where life truly begins. It begins quietly, not with chains, but with cushions. The soft seduction of safety, the promise that if we just follow the rules, keep our heads down, and do what's expected, life will reward us with comfort, stability, and a warm bed to die in. We call this happiness. But Nietzsche saw something darker hidden beneath its velvet skin. He looked at society and saw a great leveling machine, a force that prized conformity over creation, pleasure over passion, and peace over power. He called it the herd instinct, the collective hypnosis that convinces individuals to trade their wild potential for the numb assurance of belonging. And in this trade, something ancient and fierce within us quietly dies. Everywhere we look, the world whispers, "Be happy. Don't question. Don't disturb the order that keeps you safe." But safety, Nietzsche warned, has a cost. To be perpetually comfortable is to be perpetually small. It is to avoid the storms that carve the soul into something vast. He imagined a world where people would willingly surrender their freedom, not to tyrants, but to the illusion of contentment. a world where people would rather be entertained than enlightened, pacified than provoked. He saw this coming decades before it took shape. And perhaps, looking at our glowing screens and curated smiles, we see it too. Consider how we've redefined happiness in our time. It's measured in likes, vacations, and validation. Not in depth, not in the courage to confront despair. We chase dopamine spikes, not meaning. Our culture sells good vibes only as wisdom and discomfort as dysfunction. We speak of positivity as if darkness were a disease to be cured, not a teacher to be heard. But Nietzsche's voice cuts through that illusion like thunder. What if pleasure and displeasure were so intertwined that whoever wanted the one must also have the other? He understood what most of us deny, that happiness without struggle is not joy, but stagnation. A pond without movement soon rots. So too does a soul that avoids challenge. To live as Nietzsche envisioned is to live dangerously, not recklessly but vividly. To court uncertainty, to welcome conflict, to allow pain to purify rather than poison. It means breaking the herd's hypnotic promise that life should always feel good. Because the pursuit of perpetual happiness leads only to shallowness, to the dull ache of a life untested. He feared that society's obsession with comfort would produce a new kind of man, not the warrior or the creator, but what he called the last man. The last man seeks no greatness, no transcendence. He lives for small pleasures, dies without ever having lived, and calls his mediocrity contentment. He is safe, yes, but he is also hollow. Nietzsche's warning was not against civilization, but against the spiritual anesthesia it administers. When every pain is medicated, every question answered, every discomfort avoided, there is no room left for transformation. And without transformation, there is no life, only existence. Sigmund Freud once observed, "One day, in retrospect, the years of struggle will strike you as the most beautiful. It is the suffering, not the comfort, that shapes the self. It's in the fractures of life, heartbreak, failure, exile, that we encounter our own raw edges, our truth." But the modern ideal of happiness sterilizes those moments, teaching us to hide from the very experiences that could awaken us. Nietzsche's madness, or perhaps his genius, was that he refused to hide. He wanted to face life unarmored, to embrace suffering as sacred, to love even the pain that life inflicts. He called this amor fati, the love of fate, to love not just the peaks, but the valleys too, to say yes to everything, because happiness, as the herd defines it, is the art of saying no to half of life. But joy, the kind Nietzsche revered, is born when you stop refusing the dark. It's not a smile, it's a roar, and in that roar, the individual is reborn. There are moments when life burns everything we thought we were. A relationship shatters, a dream dissolves, a truth we've built our identity around collapses into dust. In that collapse, happiness, that fragile, glittering idol, fails us completely. But Nietzsche would say, good, because only when the false gods fall can we begin to discover who we truly are. To him, suffering wasn't a curse, it was initiation. The soul, he believed, doesn't grow in the sunlight of ease, but in the storms of transformation. It's through the fire that we are forged, through loss, humiliation, heartbreak, and the raw chaos of existence. Each wound, if faced courageously, becomes a doorway to becoming. He once wrote, "One must still have chaos in oneself to give birth to a dancing star." That single line captures the essence of his philosophy. Chaos, the very thing we flee from, is not the enemy. It is the raw material of creation. Without chaos, there is no birth, no art, no transcendence. The same fire that destroys the old also illuminates the new. And yet, most people spend their lives trying to extinguish that fire. They smooth the rough edges, silence the inner storms, chase serenity as if it were salvation. But serenity without struggle is death in disguise, a stillness without life. Nietzsche invites us instead to stand inside the flame, to let it consume what is false and leave only what is real. Picture a sculptor before a block of marble. The beauty we see in the finished form comes only through the blows of the hammer, the relentless chisel cutting away everything unnecessary. The marble suffers to reveal its truth. And so do we. Nietzsche's journey was no abstraction. It was lived agony. His body was frail, his mind often tormented, his life filled with isolation and illness. But through that suffering, he touched something vast, an understanding that the deepest strength emerges only when everything else is stripped away. He became a philosopher of fire because he had lived through the ashes. In this crucible, happiness no longer matters. It becomes too small, too trivial a goal for the vastness of the human spirit. Nietzsche replaces it with a far more dangerous pursuit: self-overcoming. Not comfort, but transformation. Not peace, but power. Not the power to control others, but to master oneself, to create meaning where none exists. And in this act of creation, the human being becomes something more, a becoming rather than a being. No longer chained to the herd's ideals of happiness, morality, or approval. He becomes his own artist, his own myth, his own storm. This transformation demands a brutal honesty, to face the void and say yes to it. To look at life's chaos and declare, "You will not break me, you will make me." It is the alchemy of pain into power. Viktor Frankl, echoing Nietzsche decades later, wrote, "Those who have a why to live can bear almost any how. The why is meaning, and meaning is never born from comfort. It emerges from confrontation, from the willingness to wrestle with suffering until it reveals its secret. That secret is not happiness, but depth. To live by this truth is to reject the culture of anesthesia, the endless pursuit of numb pleasures that keep us from meeting ourselves. It's to recognize that the soul doesn't want safety. It wants significance. It wants to become, and becoming is never painless. The individual who walks this path steps out of the herd and into the wilderness. He sheds the armor of positivity, the illusion of control, the craving for constant happiness. He walks naked into the storm, trusting that the tempest will not destroy him, but carve him into something divine. That, for Nietzsche, was the highest calling, to turn one's suffering into strength, one's chaos into creation. To look at life with all its cruelty and beauty, and whisper not, "I wish it were easier," but "I would not have it any other way," for in that acceptance, happiness dissolves and freedom begins. What happens when a man stops chasing happiness? When he lets go of the illusion that life owes him comfort or peace? At first, there is fear. The ground collapses beneath the feet, and the world that once seemed full of meaning becomes strange, uncertain, and vast. But in that emptiness, something extraordinary begins to stir. A different kind of joy. Not the trembling pleasure of satisfaction, but the fierce, radiant joy of being fully alive. This is the joy Nietzsche pointed toward. Not the shallow laughter of the contented, but the deep exhalation of the awakened. He called it the tragic joy, a joy that dances even as it bleeds, that finds beauty in the storm because it no longer needs shelter from it. This joy does not ask life to be easy, nor fair, nor kind. It simply says yes. In his book, Thus Spoke Zarathustra, Nietzsche described the spirit's transformation in 3 stages: the camel, the lion, and the child. The camel carries burdens: duty, morality, expectation. It endures, obeys, and kneels. The lion arises to rebel, to slay the dragons of thou shalt, to declare its independence. But it is the child, Nietzsche said, who represents the highest transformation, the one who forgets fear, who plays, who creates. Not because life is painless, but because the child has learned to trust it again. He has passed through suffering and returned with innocence, not ignorance but wonder. This is what Nietzsche meant by saying yes to life. It is not a naive optimism. It's the courage to embrace everything, pleasure and pain, creation and destruction, as part of the same sacred whole. It's the moment when you stop dividing experience into good and bad, and begin to see that both are necessary movements of the same symphony. Alan Watts once said, "The more a thing tends to be permanent, the more it tends to be lifeless." Happiness, in its conventional sense, is a quest for permanence, the desire to freeze life in a single, unchanging state of pleasure. But life refuses to be still. It flows, it breaks, it builds, it burns. To cling to happiness is to resist life's motion. To surrender to joy is to move with it, to dance with the chaos rather than hide from it. In this higher joy, there is an acceptance so profound that even suffering becomes sacred. The tears, the failures, the lonely nights, they are no longer seen as intrusions on happiness, but as threads woven into the texture of meaning. The individual who reaches this point no longer demands that life serve his comfort. He becomes a servant of life itself, a vessel through which existence can express its wild, tragic beauty. Nietzsche called this spirit the Übermensch, the Overman, the one who has overcome the smallness of ordinary desire. He is not a tyrant or a god, but a creator, one who invents his own values, his own meanings, his own rhythm of joy. He lives beyond the binary of happy and sad, success and failure. For him, everything is fuel. Even despair is a kind of nourishment. And perhaps this is the deepest truth of Nietzsche's vision, that true joy is not found because life is easy, but despite its difficulty. It is a defiance, a rebellion of the spirit that says, "You may wound me, but I will still dance." It is the laughter of the one who has faced the abyss and chosen not to fall, but to soar. This joy cannot be sold, taught, or guaranteed. It is born only when one dies to the illusion of happiness, when one abandons the childish dream of safety and dares to live in full exposure to life's terrible beauty. It is the joy of the artist who loves his suffering because it gives birth to creation, the thinker who cherishes solitude because it sharpens the soul, the lover who embraces heartbreak because it deepens the heart. To say yes to life, completely without exception, is the highest act of freedom. And from that yes, a new kind of happiness emerges, not as a goal, but as a byproduct of alignment with existence itself. A happiness that does not flee from sorrow, because it knows sorrow as kin. This, Nietzsche believed, is the only joy worthy of the human spirit. There comes a moment, quiet, almost imperceptible, when a person realizes that most of what they called living was only waiting. Waiting for things to get better, easier, happier. Waiting for permission to begin. And then, in a flash of unbearable honesty, it dawns. Happiness was never coming, because happiness was never meant to be a destination. It was the bait that kept us walking in circles, safe and tame, while life, real, raw, unrepeatable life, passed silently by. Nietzsche saw this tragedy everywhere. He saw it in the faces of those who had traded passion for security, originality for acceptance, courage for comfort. He saw it in the slow death that comes from never daring to suffer. And he called it what it was, nihilism in disguise. For to live only for happiness is to live without meaning, without danger, without depth. It is to float on the surface of existence, untouched by its fire. He did not want us to escape pain. He wanted us to use it, to carve significance out of suffering, to turn despair into a kind of rebellion. For Nietzsche, the worst fate was not misery, but mediocrity, the slow suffocation of the soul beneath the weight of trivial pleasures. He wrote, "To live is to suffer, to survive is to find some meaning in the suffering, not as a sentence of despair, but as an invitation to find beauty even in the wound." Think of the moments in your life that truly shaped you. They were not the easy ones, were they? They were the nights you thought would never end, the heartbreaks that left you hollow, the failures that forced you to see who you really were. Those were not detours from happiness. They were the path itself. They burned away illusions, left scars that spoke truth. And if you listened closely, you may have heard what Nietzsche heard in the midst of suffering. A faint, defiant whisper, yes. This yes is everything. It is the soul's refusal to bow, the triumph of meaning over misery. It is the echo of life itself insisting that even tragedy has purpose. To say yes to all of it, the agony and the ecstasy, is to live beyond the shallow pursuit of happiness. It is to become a creator in the deepest sense, an artist whose canvas is existence. But few dare to live this way. Most settle for half measures, the comfort of routine, the safety of opinion, the small satisfactions that keep the deeper hunger quiet. We trade the vastness of possibility for the narrow confines of certainty. We cling to happiness because it is predictable. Meaning, on the other hand, is wild, it asks for everything. Carl Jung once reflected, The privilege of a lifetime is to become who you truly are. But becoming yourself is not painless. It demands that you step into the unknown, that you lose the illusions that once kept you warm. And yet, beyond that loss, there is something greater than happiness. A fierce serenity, a luminous intensity that only those who have suffered and transcended can know. Nietzsche's life ended in madness, but perhaps his madness was a mirror, showing us the cost of feeling life too deeply in a world terrified of pain. He saw the abyss and did not look away. He asked the questions most of us never dare to ask. What if suffering is sacred? What if happiness is the lie that keeps us from discovering who we could become? In the end, his message was not bleak but liberating. He did not tell us to reject happiness out of bitterness, but to see through it, to find something more real, more enduring. A joy that cannot be taken because it is not built on conditions. A strength that does not depend on the world's kindness. A love of life so complete that even its cruelty becomes holy. And so, the final truth stands, quiet and unyielding. Happiness may comfort us, but it will never awaken us. Pain may wound us, but it alone has the power to reveal who we are. The question is not whether you will suffer, you will. The question is whether you will suffer meaningfully, whether you will let the fire destroy you or purify you, whether you will choose to drift through life in search of fleeting comfort, or walk straight into its storm and become the flame itself. Because in the end, Nietzsche was not warning us against misery. He was warning us against living half alive. And perhaps, if you listen closely to the silence after joy has faded, you'll hear it too. That quiet whisper, ancient and defiant. Say yes.